Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Native Paranormal Crossroads. This is our 21st episode, I believe, guys. So this week we're doing Native American ties to the paranormal. So let's just reintroduce everybody here. So we've got my co-host, Dale Tobin from Symmetry.
Hello, everyone. Great to be here. In for another fun show.
Sorry, Dale. Yes, absolutely. We've got Michelle Miners.
Hello, everybody.
From Paranormal Rangers. And today we've got Stan Milford. I don't think John Dover can be with us. Hi, Stan.
Hello. Glad to be here.
Hi, guys. Really, really good to be back here with you again. So just update us. What have you two been up to? I think you've been out and about.
Well, I'll start. 2 weeks ago, I was on assignment for the Paranormal Rangers up in the Uinta Basin. Brought a production group in there. They're doing a documentary on some things with the paranormal, and I set up site locations for them to film, and they really enjoyed themselves, and they want to work again with us in sometime in the future. Hopefully we'll be, in Navajo land. So we'll take them there and we'll investigate that area. It was really fun to do that. And then also we ended up going to Toronto, Canada, and we had a blast. We had a great time.
So what's new with you, Stan? Go on, Michelle.
Well, I was going to let Stan elaborate on that one.
Yes. Michelle, myself, and John traveled to Toronto, Canada. We joined the Cree Nation, First Nations peoples, and we spent a few days up there. They hold an art and an event where they have various speakers talking about their relationships to Bigfoot and other paranormal. And so yeah, we had a few days up there. We had pretty good weather the whole time, and good company and good food, and really enjoyable visit up there. It was kind of fast paced, but today I'm visiting you guys from Phoenix, Arizona. I'm at a good friend of mine's residence in Phoenix, but I'm glad to be joining you. John Dover just left here a little while ago, headed back home. He has a family event he's got to attend in the next couple of days. So I'll be here through the 4th of July and just kind of having a mini vacation, I think, before things pick up. I do have the studio work regarding the audiobook coming up in a week or so, and John and I are doing a field visit on the Navajo Nation, doing kind of some exploration. So yeah, we're going to be busy coming up pretty quick.
Do you want to remind people about the book again, Stan?
Yeah, sure. So I've written a book called The Paranormal Ranger that was written in collaboration with HarperCollins Publishing. That book basically goes into how I got into law enforcement leading up to the work that John and I did under the Special Projects Unit, and then my latter career with the Rangers, and detailing the paranormal investigations, and I throw in some Navajo cultural things in that book, and so yeah, it's exciting, and I have to pinch myself because I never imagined that I would be given the opportunity to write a book, and so that's happening now, and it's out for pre-sale right now. You can go to HarperCollins online, their website, and you can enter either my name or the Paranormal Ranger, and it'll bring up the book, and you can pre-order it if you choose to, So, yeah, we're excited about it.
I know it's early days. Do you think you must have enough material for a follow-up book to that?
I've already started that follow-up book. Both of these pieces, the Paranormal Ranger, I started writing really that when I was still in the middle of my Ranger career. Uh, I found these paranormal cases we were investigating very interesting, and I would make personal notes regarding some of these cases. And I come from two families, my mother's side and my father's side. My relatives are adamant readers, all of them pretty much, including myself and my siblings. And I never, again, I never really imagined that I would be given this opportunity to write a book. But uh, that came about after one of the higher ups with HarperCollins watched the Unsolved Mystery episode of John and I on Netflix, the Paranormal Rangers, and he's seen that, and I believe he's the vice president, and he contacted John and said, I'm very interested in being able to help you publish some books. And so John had provided the information to me, and the following day I contacted them back and said, yeah, I would be interested. I'm already writing information. So really everything came together just like it has in any of this paranormal related stuff. There's uh, a synchronicity to it, or the people we meet. A lot of the people we meet, just like you, Laura, and Andrew and Dale, it's like we've known each other for a long time, and that's the way it is with a lot of the people we meet. And I'm sure Michelle can attest to that. The people like we meet in Canada, you're developing a new friendship, but it seems like you've been friends for a long, long time. And it's kind of odd. It's can be kind of eerie sometimes because it's just, but in a good way. And but everything's come together with the book, and I'm really blessed to have been given the opportunity to put this together for the people and my family and things like that.
So
Yeah.
Stan, with the book, so is it a story about all of your adventures? What type of book is it for those people who are first listen to
It's
this?
this initial book is a memoir, really detailing how these things came about for these investigations to happen. It does detail some of the actual investigations that I was involved in, and some of those that John was involved in, and it's a few of the more prolific cases that we investigated, and that I think had the greatest impact on me and John during the time that we did these investigations. The thing is, these are only a couple of the actual cases that I was involved in, and John was involved in over the years. There was hundreds of cases that we did. Um, there's plenty of material for other books. The second book that I'm I've started though is actually a fictional piece. It's rooted in an actual investigation that I did, but I took the liberty to develop a fictional piece in and around that, which was also exciting, but a completely different way of writing from the first book, definitely. And I would like to
So,
say hello to everybody that's making comments. Thank you for coming on and joining us.
yeah, any questions, guys, please put them in the chat. We do try and get to them all. Michelle, both you and John Stan have mentioned tonight about field work on the Navajo reservation. Is there anything you can tell us about that? That's something that's coming up for you?
So the field work that I spoke of when I was down in the Uinta Basin, up in the Uinta Basin, because we go up east. The crew that I was working with, production crew, as I told you, they were doing a documentary. They would like to explore more on the Native American kind of the plane of that area where we interact with some of the tribes there. More so the Hopi Indian. They were considered the first star people that got in contact with the star seeds here on Earth, and they have a lot of connections, and they have a lot of traditions and cultural awareness to the constellations and things. We are really looking forward to that opportunity when it does come, that they want to come and explore. We did have some phenomena happen to us while we were up in the Uinta Basin. I will tell this one particular story, since our subject matter is today is our ties to the phenomena. We had a barbecue that was hosted by a friend of mine up near Blind Frog Ranch area. And we had stayed well into like midnight. People were attesting to seeing orbs. I saw a couple myself. They were feeling the energy. It was all positive. They were feeling like they were connected to the land. My friend owns a farm up there. We spent the majority of the evening eating and barbecuing and talking about what's been going on in that area. And apparently it's been active all summer long. And what was really interesting with the production team, that's what they were engaging in, wanting to feel the energy and to see if something would happen. But it was really interesting. They did not capture that on film, which I found a little bit surprising. But they said it didn't matter. It's just the experience they had. They can retell it in the documentary, from their perspective. But as we were going home, and had to be about 1 o'clock in the morning, we all piled it into the truck to go back to our accommodations. As we came down, they call it Paradise Park. We went down there and we were about to turn on the main highway leading to where we were going to be sleeping at our Airbnb. And all of a sudden the driver says, "Oh my gosh, did you see that blue orb?" And the guy in the back who was on the same side, that was the driver's side, said, "Yeah, I just saw that." And as soon as we turned to the right, a deer came out of nowhere. And it stopped right in front of us and we almost hit it. And in my mind, I said, "No, this is not going to happen. We are not bringing you home with us." In my mind, I was thinking this. And then I didn't realize I had verbalized that to the whole car because I thought I just did in my mind. That's how quickly and they overheard that. And I go, "Well," and then the guy he immediately pulled over to the side of the road and he turns around and goes, "What do you mean that isn't going to happen?" And I said, "Phenomena is starting to follow us, so we need to clear it." And there were some stuff that I had with me that we did. We cleared it, we saged it, whatever. to lessen. There was a lot of pressure on people's upper part of their chest. They felt this heaviness. And so I was able to administer a couple of things to them, and they took it. And then we all got back in. And the driver said, "Oh my gosh, I've never had anything like this happen that intense." And they started to talk amongst us. And I'm sitting there and I said, you guys, this is one of the patterns that exist up in the Uinta Basin based on how the phenomena shows up. And if we don't clear it, or, or prayer, or whatever you choose to not have it follow you, it will follow you. And what was so interesting about that deer, it was a young deer, and it stopped just in the road. And then when he almost hit it, it moved a little bit across the way. There was no oncoming traffic the other way. It turned around and it stared at us. And that was a little bit unnerving. And it unnerved me as well. Is like, usually they just get away, once they know there's movement and people around. But this one didn't. It just turned around and stared at all of us. So we thought that was very unusual. So when we want to go explore, this really excited them that we need to go do this on our homelands to see if, we get the same kind of reaction. And I told them that through my studies with Dr. Segala, we find that it's not the environment, it's the people who have the right intent or don't have the right intent. The phenomena will show itself.
So I had a deer experience about 6 years ago. I went to a place which was called, it was like a really old woodland, and there was like it's beautiful. It was surrounded like trees. Must be about 800 years old, the forest, and incredible rocks, incredible place. And I was drumming, and I was on my own. I was in the middle of nowhere, and I was drumming, and I had a fire going, and all of a sudden a deer came to me about 7 feet away. And it just walked over to me and looked at me as I was drumming and didn't realize. And it took about 10 seconds to realize who I was. And we like looked at each other for a while, and it was like, "Oh shit, you're a human." And it ran off. It was like the sound of the drumming. And when I was drumming, the deer just came and was drawn to it. And it just stood right in front of me and was staring at me. And I was like, "Holy fuck." I was like, "Hi."
Hello. How's it going? Yeah, you make contact. Yeah.
Yes.
That's really cool to be.
Yeah, I've had stuff like that as well. Reading Andrew's revocations, I've had a deer stop to listen. So you know that Andrew's revocations, come out at some there's some wonderful frequency, let's say, or a frequency match to that deer at that time. So
right. That's
so
great.
Michelle, you said there's a couple of things there. When this filming is done, will you let us all know when and where these are going to be aired?
Yes. And
really
depending
good.
what they're going to do with it, because I don't control that part of it.
No.
Or if they put it on a network, or what are they doing? Or maybe, one of the filmmakers was from, I think it was Argentina. So I think he has some international ties. The people in Argentina are a little bit more connected to the phenomena. They like disclosure, a little bit more open about this subject matter. And but we'll definitely do that.
Brilliant. A couple of other things. You mentioned that they weren't able to capture it on film. Were they trying to film it, were intending to film it, and it just didn't appear on the film for them?
No, I found it kind of surprising, because I did tell them, I said, we're going to a picnic. You guys might want to set up your equipment. Even if we're having a fun time, entertaining, talking, having conversation, at least you have your equipment showing to the skies. Because I told them, you're going to get some activity. I know that for a fact. I have been around that area a lot, and we caught actual, phenomena pictures when I was up there with the Weather Channel, doing that our segments and episodes up there. And I said, you guys better have them. But for some reason, they didn't even acknowledge that with themselves. And they even commented on the next day when we were all having a recap. They said, well, it's okay that we didn't do that. But I think sometimes our minds are occupied Maybe they wouldn't have come if there was so many things capturing them. And what was
I think,
so funny is one of the things that we thought we were capturing was an oncoming hospital helicopter, and it was flashing blue, red, green. We thought it was orbs. And then our host, my friend, told us, well, they use my lights here on my property because it's a beacon for them to get to the hospital. And that was like one of those things that you would have gotten, is like everybody's oohing and eyeing, but they were looking in the wrong direction. Here comes this helicopter, and it didn't make a whole lot of noise, which was also surprising. And then until it got really close, and it was a helicopter.
One thing to pay attention to when you see these kind of craft, let's say you're out observing UAPs and you're seeing objects and stuff, sometimes these things can mimic known aircraft here on Earth. So you kind of have to be cautious about dismissing something as being a drone or helicopter or even an airplane, a prop airplane or jet, because sometimes these things will mimic those kind of things just to get you to dismiss it. And in actuality, it is some type of unknown object or unknown craft, but they can mimic known craft that we have here within our atmosphere. So,
and also related to the filming aspect, I think you mentioned just now, Michelle, that it's all about the algorithm of the energies of the people who are there. Sometimes I remember I've taken, photos of orbs at a time when on my spiritual journey, when I think I needed to learn about orbs and see them. And someone else there didn't get any on their camera at all. And you can get them easily on a mobile phone camera. So I think it's really interesting the way the unseen aspects know how to, whether you're a signature frequency match for them at that time. It's absolutely fascinating. And just the other thing I wanted to ask you, I know nothing about the Uinta Basin, if that's how you say it. Is this a special place? Is this a particular place for paranormal activity?
It is. There's a correlation. Okay, so there was an ancient people that lived there. They were the Fremont Indians. They left a lot of petroglyphs behind describing some of these UFO events or gods, their deities within their own culture. The other thing was the Aztec, the culture of the Aztec, the conquistadors. There were many lore stories that talk about the Rhodes gold. There's a lot of gold up in the Uinta Basin. Conquistadors came to find the city of Cibola, Cibola, some people say it, the lost city of gold. This was part of their trail, that they would come in and enslave the Native Americans to smelter the gold. And there are different smeltering places. There are trees that have those markings of where those smeltering places occur. So there's a lot of history. There's a lot of Native American history with the Cheyenne, the Ute Indians, the Paiutes occupying and knowing where some of these hidden mines are, and there are other things that are hidden up there with some mystical background. So it's all correlated. When Dr. Segal and I did that experiment up there with some of the participants, we found that there's a correlation of the participant intermingling with the environment, not the other way around, because we used to think it was the environment causing their experiences. It's not so. And so it is an interesting phenomena. And then also you have dinosaur land and so the frequency and the radiation that is up there is very high. And then the isotopes from the Trinity bomb explosions still carry those isotopes up there. So there's a lot of interaction with a lot of radiation, iridium, all the stuff that comes from the bones. Radiation also comes from the bones of the dinosaurs. And there's a big a lot of them, and a monument to these huge prehistoric dinosaurs that once roamed the earth. There's a concentration of that. So there's a lot of things there that are interacting, and so it's hard to say one specific thing is causing it. I hope I said a mouthful there.
No, that's great. So, shall we get on to the Native American relationship with the paranormal? How does it differ, do you think, from other societies? Do you think it is different?
I think it does differ just based in the cultural aspects of various indigenous peoples, but not to say that other cultures don't have a similar thing, because they do. It's just that a lot of times we're divided by culture, divided by region, but I think as a whole, I think the human race has inherited a very paranormal and supernatural planet and universe. I think, this, even the word paranormal really, in truth, isn't very accurate, because a lot of these phenomena aren't paranormal. They're very normal. They're normal to the earth and the elements found here on earth. And we surmise that we have had visitors to this planet long before man ever walked the grounds here on earth. And so I think it's just a matter of looking at different cultures and different peoples and the stories that they have to share, and not to exclude other peoples. I think we need to have respect for each other as a human race, and to listen to each other, because a lot of times you will find that these stories actually match up. They made up. Whether you're talking about Bigfoot, a lot of the indigenous peoples here in North America have tales of the Bigfoot, but different cultures call them different things. Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Yowie in Australia, and the Yeti. So and also the little peoples, whether it's the Hopi or the Irish, talking about little peoples. You can travel the earth, and a lot of cultures will have this very similar descriptions of beings. And so,
Stan, can I ask? Could you explain a little bit more about the little people for those who have not heard of them before?
Well, actually, I would like to defer that to Michelle, but if she would, because she just got through talking about the Hopi, and I think she might be able to tell us some of what it is she knows in regards to working with peoples from Hopi, and how that fits together with the little people. And then I can jump into.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, cool.
The little people are a lore that were created, I guess, in the time that the emergent stories came about with certain tribes, and the Cheyenne, the Paiutes. They looked at the little people in their culture, even the Ute Indians. There was a time that the Cheyenne talk about them as being the evil ones, the little evil people that used to be tricksters and do bodily harm to some people in their lore. But as the storyline has come down, the Ute people describe them as tricksters. They assist their tribal members, the elders, in giving them gifts, spiritual gifts. They manifest gifts, playing tricksters on people that they don't care for or like, or they want to. And I wouldn't necessarily say do harm, but they are. There's a bunch of little houses around the Ute Nation. If you look, they look like birdhouses. And I inquired of them when I was up there doing interviews and such. And I would ask her, why do you guys put up birdhouses? You put them in the most unstrategic places I've ever seen. And they go, haven't you heard about the little people? And apparently somewhere on their reservation, there is a community of little people that exist in a village. And I was talking to a U.S. Ranger. She had gone on a I guess, an assignment to go out there and locate this particular village. And it was really a cute story. And she said she found it, got photographs, has them in her archive. And she was not native. She was a non-native woman and with the U.S. Forest Service. And she said that the tribe wanted those photos and she wasn't willing to give them up. And I think she got reprimanded from her job and to this day they still give her a hard time. But apparently, I guess the interaction that she had with this particular village, and she said it does exist out there in the Ute Nation on the reservation. They wanted to know where the location was, what they said to her, but she was told to never reveal their location and to never speak of what she saw or show the photos. And they let her take the photos for her own sake. And so to this day, that's the interview that she gave to me. And it was a really interesting storyline. That was the first time when I was starting to work on the projects I was up there that I had heard this lore. So it's an interesting that some nations have it and then some nations don't. In relationship to what you were talking about, what's our ties to the phenomena through what is different? Because I belong to the Pawnee tribe. We are the Skidee, which is the Wolf Clan, is the only one that hold the star charts on the buffalo skins. And so we look to the Pleiades galaxy and we plant our crops. And I've said this many a times on the shows. And our, long houses, whatever, how we set up our villages came from the constellations of that star system. So there is a distinct difference away from everybody else for that particular tribe. So there you go. And Stan can elaborate more what he knows.
Going back to the star people, John has an experience where he met some individuals from the Hopi tribe, Hopi Nation, and there was a young woman and her grandmother. The young woman was at the grandmother's home, and so there was a disc, a UFO disc that landed outside their home. And so the granddaughter was very excited and about seeing this, and relayed this to the grandmother. And the grandmother, it didn't excite her, or the grandmother was very familiar with the object, and it was said that there were these little peoples that were within this object. And so it makes you wonder, like with that tale, I know I've experienced seeing these gray beings in the past, and two different types, two different sizes of these gray beings. But I think it kind of fits within this idea of these experiences where people are seeing these beings in conjunction with these craft. And when you look at the vastness of the universe, known universe, and even the idea that there's possibly multiverse, it's kind of mind blowing. The potential for different types of being to be visiting our Earth and our atmosphere, and many types of beings, including little beings.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And do you think it's because the Native Americans are much more in touch with their ancient past, let's say, the star seed and so on? It's not just a story, we know that. But do you think it's because you are much more in touch with that you are much more aware of paranormal activities? Because somewhere over here, like UK and many other places, we have lost touch a lot with that. We've lost the storytelling. We were talking about that the other day. You still do have some of that storytelling going on, not as much as it was, but there is that within your community still, isn't there? There is still some of the storytelling, some of your
Those
story.
stories can be, I think, found on the pictographs and petroglyphs, like what Michelle
Yeah.
mentioned earlier. They are within our communities and within the lands that we occupy, so it's readily available. And so I think as modern man moves forward in time, we tend to become more materialistic based on these kind of things, like with the technologies and things, and really materialism. um, we become more materialistic. We become more greedy based on wealth and these kind of things, and that those kind of things draw us away from our roots. And really, I think the more simplistic a person can live, without all of the material things, and can have a close tie to their inner spirit, and I think the closer we are to uh, obviously our spirituality and our connection to those energies that came here long ago and still are visiting here. But a lot of times we become too focused on things that aren't as important, and sometimes we have to get back to the root of who we are and our spirit, and those kind of things.
Well, one of the things that impressed me this last weekend with the First Nations is their ability to stay within their cultural traditions and with nature. They're constantly getting outside and interacting with their environment, and they seem to have a little bit more freedom of practicing their traditions and culture. What was really interesting, I found out, was that the state that they live in, the government state, actually supports their culture awareness, and some are practitioners and they do get paid for practicing. I didn't know that, and it was really interesting that they're allowed to do their ceremonies openly. We were in the middle of Toronto, and there was a fire, and during a rainstorm, we had a bit of a downpour in the morning, and someone said, "Yeah, isn't it awesome that we can light a fire under a tent and have a fire going and offer these sacred herbs and things that they represent their nature, their ties to earth, Mother Earth, the four elements and such. And I was quite impressed as how open even the women were allowed to practice the drumming and smoke pipes and everything, where here it's a little bit more restrictive within our tribal systems, which I found is that their matriarch societies are much more honored than we are here, and with our tribal systems. And so when I witnessed this and this tied to their environments and where they live, a lot of them says they don't have TVs. They don't really watch a lot of television. They're out there hunting, talking with they call them the Sasquatch or the Nessie or whatever they call, not Nessie, but they called them Satch. I think that's what they kept saying, referring to the Satch. And I was like, what are you talking about? The Sasquatch. Oh, you gave them a nickname. That they regard them as their own clan, and that they interact, and just the evidence that they had, the pictures, the voice recordings, all kinds of stuff. I was impressed in how in touch they are with their environment, with their tribes, traditions, and culture and everything. And to the point, I'm not afraid of Sasquatch anymore. That's what I came out with, was a sense of peace.
Do you
One
also
thing,
because go on, John, Stan?
I was just going to say, so a very simple thing is to ask yourself, when was the last time you had your shoes off, barefoot, and were grounded on the earth? I think a simple thing like that is very, very important for human beings, for their spirituality, for their mental clarity. Just grounding to the earth
Yep.
is something that is very, very important. And we get so caught up, in the day to day, that we're isolated from that grounding. I mean, we're wearing tennis shoes that keep us suspended from being grounded, but a very simple thing like that. And you look at our societies, like let's say here in Phoenix. How often does a person actually are they able to ground themselves to our earth? And I think that is a very important thing to have that clarity as a human being that we all need, I believe.
And also, do you think that the Native American culture, they're not dismissive of their children's relationship with the paranormal? So their children will be believed if they see something. Whereas I find that over here, it's, if you have an imaginary friend, you're dissed.
Right.
That doesn't exist. Whereas in the Native American culture, I think what children see, and children obviously can have a really good connection to the paranormal, can't they? They can see a lot of stuff, and we just tend to tell them that they're making it up or whatever here, but they are believed in your culture, aren't they? They grow up with it, accepting that it exists
I
in all
I
sorts of
think that
forms.
go ahead. I think that like with John and I, um, we're able to speak and communicate with people regardless of what their age is. I can be sitting, somewhere and strike up a conversation with an 85-year-old or a 10-year-old, and I think equally they can convey very relevant ideas and information and experiences, and we all should respect each other in that way and not dismiss somebody because of age. Like you said earlier, I think children tend to be more open and connected with phenomena. They're able to, just like how we have our domestic pets and dogs that are capable with their senses of detecting and communicating with phenomena, spirits, uh, quite readily. And I think we become, in our childhood, we're very open to those senses, but also as we get older, in our older years, we become more in tune and more capable of communicating and seeing and observing activity that would be phenomenon. Uh, I think in the middle part of our lives, we tend to be so focused in the day to day, having jobs 8 to 5, and the average person, and I'm guilty of this too. I mean, in the years that I worked as a ranger, a lot of it was uh, putting in the hours there to earn a paycheck, and with a lot of people, especially married couples, they're trying to provide for their family, and they don't commit, to their children as much as what they probably should. And I'm sure for a lot of them, they buy them a laptop or tablet or whatever, and that's used to occupy them while, the adults are busy with whatever it is they need to to deal with and to keep the bills paid. And it's kind of sad the way we've structured our societies and communities in that. People today readily work well beyond 8 hours, and by the time they get home they're so exhausted, and you've got to prepare dinner and those kind of things. And so we're kind of really distracted from what it is that's really and truly important, in life.
So, Stan, can I ask? So, what was your schedule like when you were a ranger? Were you working 5 days a week? How was it, like a full time? What type of schedule was it?
In general, we would have 5 days that we would work. Sometimes they would, you would overlap the weekend, so you had coverage. And but um, as a young ranger, you're on average about 12 plus hours a day, because again, you're covering 27,000 square miles of land, and you may be going into other districts across the nation to cover enforcement on some type of event that's going on, or let's say in Monument Valley, maybe you're being assigned to a special event at Monument Valley, and so you're there all day doing the enforcement. And then, at the beginning of that, you got to drive the few hours to get out there, and then you have to drive the few hours to get back home after the event's over. So yeah, it could easily run 12 hours or even more. I mean, there's times I've worked assignments that went well over 20 hours a day, and that really wasn't unusual. And for John and I, having worked the special projects unit, heading that section up, uh, sometimes you put in those 20-hour days. You just about get home, and then something else happens, an emergency happens, and you got to turn right around and go back out. And so it can be. It was a unique situation where you had to put a lot of hours and dedication in to do that kind of work, and also to be able to handle the nature of that kind of work. I mean, I can remember there's times that I assisted with retrieving bodies that have been in the water for several days, you know, people that had been burned in accidents or fires, people, their bodies completely dismembered in vehicle accidents. And it takes a special person to be able to deal with that and to be able to go home and leave that behind. I always put that in the hands of my creator. You know, I had seen and worked with criminal investigation with the Navajo Nation where we had homicides, you know, involving children and things of that nature. And, you know, it's for the average person, it's really traumatizing and stuff, but it takes a special person to be able to deal with those kind of things and leave it behind. I never carried that baggage with me. You know, I was able to deal with those kind of things and leave it at the door, you know, so to speak.
Well, we should do a true crime episode sometime.
Oh, that would be
Yeah,
fun.
we could do that.
It's very
Yeah.
popular.
Yeah, we could do that. Yeah.
Hey, Laura, to
Definitely.
your original question about the community and children and their abilities to see things, there was a really interesting elder that was there, a lady who we had a panel of question and answer session, and it was really interesting. She stood up and asked to share a story. She came from one of the smaller islands up in the First Nation Providences, the reserves, and she was the matriarch. I had a separate conversation after we had the Q&A, and I asked her about that story she had shared, and what the story was, that the Sasquatch was starting to visit their village and, you know, being tricksters and making their presence known. And finally, the people in her village were getting very scared because they thought they had done something wrong. And on this particular thing, she said that there was an event that he showed up in the village and everybody ran to her house and they all went into her basement for safety reasons. And so finally they asked her to go out and talk to him. And he came and he spoke with her. And he says, all I'm trying to do is protect the people. They're doing things they shouldn't be doing. So I'm here to make things correct. She told me out offline. And she said, and when people don't understand the ways of the land or their children, they don't understand the elders, the medicine, the traditions, she said, the Squatch always comes and makes it right and puts them back on the right course. And that was the reason why, you know, she said the children are forgetting their traditions and their language. And she said, and that was the way for the Squatch, said, to put them back in line and to get them back on the path they're supposed to be on. And I thought that was really interesting. She says, we need the children to share our stories and our traditions. And she was really a happy lady. That's what really, her countenance was always happy. And I told her, I said, thank you for sharing that story today. It taught me a great lessons that we do need to share this to our children so that they can go and have those interactions, whether they're spiritual, whether they're paranormal. I hate that word because it doesn't describe exactly, you know, it's just unknown to us what that is. We make it fearful instead of embracing.
We got to create words like paranatural.
Yeah, paranatural. I like what Stan used.
We got to create a new
Yeah.
terminology. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think our schools over here, especially for the younger children, they need a Bigfoot story time or something. You know, we need these.
They need a drum. They need a drum, and then
a drum. Exactly.
A bit more than Enid Blyton, which is what it was in my day. But yeah, we need to be introducing these things. I mean, we have things called, I don't know if you have the Gruffalo books over.
Yeah, I've
in
heard
the US. We got things like the Gruffalo and obviously loads of dragon stuff and all that, but it needs something that actually connects it more to the natural world and makes it more real, not cartoonish.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah. Yeah, because
I would like to. I would like to, before we finish up, I would like to jump in and answer one of the questions that somebody's commented.
Oh, yeah.
And this is for Twilight Someone. And they ask, are skinwalkers an interdimensional species or are they native to Earth? And from my experience is that uh, this is a type of, for Navajo, this is a type of shapeshifter. This is a being that for Navajo, it is an actual human being that is utilizing witchcraft in order to change form from a human shape and a human being into that of an animal type of form, maybe running on all fours or maybe winged animals of that nature, but it is rooted in witchcraft. And so an individual will practice certain rituals and in order to be able to acquire those powers of changing form. John and I have kind of leaned toward the idea that these individuals are using the DNA of an animal in order to change into that animal's form. And it's very closely tied to, in similarity to Satanism, these kind of things like that, where there's a lot of rituals being performed in order to gain certain abilities and powers, but there's also a lot of sacrifice that an individual is required to go through to obtain those powers. It's said that within the Navajo, when a person acquires those powers to shapeshift and stuff, they have to sacrifice the life of somebody that is very dear to them, that's very close to them, in order to gain that ability. And so, although I do think even a lot of the paranormal is in some way related to the idea of dimensions and different planes of existence. And I do think these people that practice that type of witchcraft are capable of going into another dimension at their own power and be able to move at great distances instantaneously and come out great distances away and use things like that to their advantage. But I appreciate the question, and that's kind of from my experience what I know. I have witnessed, this form of entity in my lifetime. A lot of when I was younger, I felt it was more of a folktale kind of thing, but I found out firsthand that there's a reality to it. People can actually change to other forms of life, and but anyway, yeah.
And they also asked, why do they leave their shoes in caves?
I don't know that a skinwalker does that. I know that some of the past peoples, John and I went into Paiute Cave one time, and I've been in several caves where you observe more or less prehistoric footwear or sandals and this kind of thing from ancient peoples. And but I don't know that is tied to witchcraft or not. But yeah, I do know that historically, ancient peoples, there were the sandals and things like that I've witnessed. deep into caves. So
It might be a ritual that they practice. Who knows? I mean, only can speculate. But
Right.
so now we're at the top of the hour. I'd like to share an announcement for our next show. We are going to have Mike Patterson on our next show. He's a Sasquatch explorer, hunter. He gathers the voice messages from the Sasquatch. He has relics that, footprints, things like that he has acquired. He has acquired relationships to the Sasquatch. So I will be posting that. I'm looking forward. We have had some interactions with one another and spoke to one another of his career with the Sasquatch. It is a very, very intriguing story that he tells. So we'll have him on in our next show next week.
That sounds fabulous.
We'll have to make it Bigfoot month.
Yeah, I like that. Good one, Andrew. Well, yes, we'll do that. Any last words, anybody?
I got a question.
Sure.
So the convention that you guys went to, you might have covered this,
Conference.
was in Canada and it was sponsored by the Ojibwe.
Yes, it was the city of Toronto.
Next time they have it, we've got to promote it so we get our audience to go to there too.
Absolutely. We'd love for everybody to come up.
And they definitely want to they're already starting for the planning of the following year, and they've invited us to come back.
And actually, we're going to be doing an investigation up there with the other 3 or 4. The host of the Judy, who we had on the show, is putting that all together, that we all go on an expedition and interact with those their ancestors, which are the Sasquatch. That should be really exciting for people who want to share in that experience.
The lady you talked to, who talked to the Sasquatch that came into the village, would be nice to get her on too, if she's willing.
Yeah, I'll contact Judy. Beautiful woman, very, very genteel in her personality, and the matriarch of her island. Well respected.
So Stan, when is your book coming out?
My book will be out October 1st on HarperCollins. It'll be on Amazon and other different retail outlets. So.
But people are able to pre-order it now?
They are able to pre-order it on HarperCollins. If you go to the HarperCollins website, you can enter my name, Stanley Milford Jr., or the Paranormal Ranger, and it'll bring up the book, and you can actually pre-order it there. They are already getting quite a few pre-orders regarding the book.
I encourage everyone to go to harpercollins.com and look up Stan's book and pre-order it. It's going to be an amazing read for everyone.
Thank you.
It is.
And also the Paranormals have a membership, don't you?
Yes.
So,
Yep.
And a website and a Facebook page, website paranormalrangers.com. So please go on and register your support so we can get these guys out there and people can hear their fantastic stories.
Great show, guys.
Thank you for joining us.
And thanks for all the comments as
Bigfoot
well.
month.
Yay.
Next week.
Yeah. So thanks, everybody, and we will be back the same time.